2. Banjo Ben here. Today we're doing utility rolls in the key of D. So this is continuing on in a course of utility rolls, which means backup rolls that we're able to play in a lot of different circumstances. They're not too major, they're not too minor, they just work on tons of bluegrass songs. And when we get to the key of D, sometimes people can panic because they're not used to playing out of that position. We're going to capo up the 5th string to an A note, and then we're going to learn how to operate in the key of D and give you some just easy things to grab to get through these chord progressions. I'm going to teach you a couple licks in each one of the major chords that we go to in the key of D, and then in the end, we're going to put them all together so that you'll be prepared to roll along the next time that key of D song gets called in the jam. Keep in mind too, if it's an E or an F, same principles work. We're just going to capo up and use the same position. Thank you, Daniel, for helping me out today. If you're watching here at banjobenclark.com as a Gold Pick member, download the tabs. I've got rhythm jam track MP3s that take you through the key of D progression at different speeds so that you can practice along. Just click on that next video segment and we'll get started with this. If you're watching somewhere else like Facebook or YouTube, go ahead, subscribe, hit that like button. And if you want to learn more, you can come over and be a Gold Pick member at banjobenclark.com, where you can access over 800 lessons, not only for banjo, but for guitar and mandolin as well. Let's get utility rolling. There are 3 parts to this lesson. The first thing we're going to do is learn a basic utility roll over 3 of the chords that we're going to most often run into in the key of D. So let's talk about those really quick. We're in the key of D, so we're going to, of course, need to play over a D chord. What other 2 chords are you going to most often run into? A G chord and an A chord. Now, good news for us banjo players, because we're coming in with a lot of G chord experience, more than likely. That's where we start learning how to play banjo. So we can bring a lot of that knowledge over. It's going to work great in the key of D. In the second part of the lesson, we're going to learn some actual licks. So whereas the utility roll is meant to just provide a rhythmic bed, there'll be times where we want to throw some actual licks in for whatever reason. And they're fun. Okay, so we're going to learn a couple of licks over each chord. And then finally, in the end, third part of the lesson, we're going to put it all together. So we're going to simulate a song that is a 1-4-5 or 1-5-4, and we're going to put all this knowledge to work. All right, you ready to do that? Very cool. Now let's talk about tuning real quick. I'm in standard tuning with my top 4 strings, but I'm going to take my 5th string, I'm going to capo it up to the 7th fret. So it becomes an A note. Same note as my 1st string played at the 7th fret. If you don't have spikes in your banjo, you can try tuning up your 5th string a whole step. It'll probably work. But if you break your string, it's not my fault. There's also other capo options out there. And that's generally how I'm going to approach playing in the key of D. Of course, you could also always capo up to and approach it out of a C position. And I have lots of stuff on the website about playing out of C position, but let's talk about D utility rolls. Now, let me just play you this D utility roll that I'm going to teach for you. It sounds like this. Let's talk about which notes are actually being played. We've got our low D string, our high D string, our A note up there in the 2nd fret here, which is an A note. What do you notice about that? Those are only 2 different notes. We're just playing them in 2 different octaves. And now it's important to recognize which 2 notes those are. Those are the 1st and the 5th of the D major scale. Okay, so that's the power chord notes that you often hear in rock and roll. What they're missing is, to make it a true D chord, would be that major 3rd tone, this F sharp. And the reason why we leave that out of a lot of banjo rolls is because that 3rd tone really identifies the roll as a major roll. Okay, just listen to the difference between this and this. It has a different emotion, doesn't it? It sounds like we're getting into ragtime or something all of a sudden, something very major. And so much of our bluegrass borders on that, or is on that border of major and minor. Sometimes it's not really distinct. And we're playing a lot of blues notes even over a major chord. So it's just good practice for just blending and fluidity to keep those major thirds out most of the time. We are going to use them, and we do use them at the end of a couple of those measures. You'll notice at the end of measure 2, what do? So I'm doing a quick hammer on there, but then I'm going back to the open D string. So it's very easy to play over a D chord because we really only need one finger, right? And at the end, when I go to that 4th fret, that's to set your ear up to go to the next chord, which sounds what? Which is pointing to where? It's pointing us to that 4 chord, to that G chord. So let's try playing just this D utility roll together very slowly. Ready, go. You can pause the video and rehearse that, repeat that through several times. There are some other variances that I'll often do. Sometimes I'll make a D7 chord. That's where I put my index finger on the 1st fret of the B string. And I might alternate my index finger on my right hand to go back and forth between those notes. So instead of constantly playing the 3rd string, I'll jump up and play the 2nd string with my index finger, and it sounds like this. Same roll, I'm just reaching the 2nd string instead of the 1st or the 3rd. That sounds pretty nice too. So that flat 7 note, that C note, is also a great option for us to go to. Okay, let's look at our G utility roll. Here's where we're back into some regular territory that we're used to in the key of G. Again, we're going to stay away from our major thirds for the most part. Where's our major third in the key of G? It's this B string. We're pretty much going to stay away from that for a G utility roll. By the way, if you haven't watched my utility roll, intro to utility rolls, you want to go watch that lesson. That's where we cover the key of G. This one sounds like this. The reason why I'm going up to that 1st fret at the end is because that's leading us into the A chord. But if you weren't going to the A chord, you wouldn't play that. You would just keep playing your open G string. There's a couple ways to blues this up. At the end of measure 6, instead of doing that 4th fret, you could do a 3rd fret. So it'd sound like this. You can bring in a lot of your tricks from the key of G over here. So again, we'll get more into that whenever we start learning our licks because we're gonna be ahead of the game there. Let's look at our A utility roll. Our A utility roll is not going to be a full A chord. You're not going to bar it, and we're not going to play all 3 fingers. Reason being, we're going to stay away from that major third again. Where's the major third in the key of A? It's the 2nd fret here, the C sharp note. We're going to stay away from that, and we're going to play the 1st and the 5th tones of the scale, just like we've done so far for the other 2 chords. And that's the 2nd fret's here. 3rd string, 1st string. And I like to do it with my middle 2 fingers because I am going to be hammering on into that quite a bit. Sounds like this. I played it wrong. Starting measure 11. Going back to D, we could do something like that. Okay, let's play that one more time so that I can play it correctly. Ready, go. Okay, and you'll notice that these utility rolls follow somewhat of a pattern. They start with a quarter note for the most part, and then they have 3 forward rolls, and then it does a reverse roll. And that's pretty much the pattern that we're going to find in these utility rolls. They're built into 2 measure segments. I covered that in the last lesson, so that's why I didn't cover this here, but maybe you've picked up on that even if you didn't watch the first lesson. Okay, Daniel, let's run through let's run all the way through these utility rolls. So we're going to do 4 measures of D, 4 measures of G, 4 measures of A, and back to 4 measures of D. And we'll throw the tab up there for you to follow along. You can maybe watch one time through and then repeat it and try playing along with us. 1, 2, ready, go. How'd you do? Let's try it one more time. Remember, you can slow down or speed up this video by clicking on the gear icon and choosing your playback speed. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's our utility rolls. That's our foundation that we can take into a song that's in the key of D. Lots of variations, of course, that we can play within those, but that will get you rolling, right? And then there's going to be times where we're going to play or want to play some licks. So not only do those utility rolls, but those types of things. So let's learn a couple licks over each of the 3 chords, and then we'll work on putting them all together. If you're watching here on YouTube or Facebook, this is where I'm going to beg you. Come on over to the website, banjobenclark.com. You can be a Gold Pit member, see this full 30-plus minute video, watch the entire course on utility rolls, and hundreds more lessons. For those of you already on the site, thank you for your support of the site, and just click on the next video segment. Don't forget to download the tabs. Play along with me there, Daniel. 1, 2, ready, go. Now we're going to G.